Okay, so we're back in the Chofetz Chaim, a lesson a day. So again, I apologize that I've had this lapse for a couple weeks, particularly this last week, but I'm back and I'm dedicated to videos. So this from his work, Sefer Chofetz Chaim, this is day 58. This lesson is called Avoiding Flattery. So even where it is permissible to speak negatively for a constructive purpose, one must avoid insincere flattery. For it is forbidden to be critical of someone when he is not present, yet demonstrate approval of his behavior in his presence. If the concern is that the person's feelings not be hurt, then the solution is to express respect and concern for him as a person, but clear disapproval of his behavior. If one is certain that reproof will be ignored and is therefore prepared to publicize the person's behavior as an attempt to induce him to change his ways, one must nevertheless approach this sinner first, so as not to be suspected of insincerity. In the above case, where it is clear that the person will not be moved by rebuke, one can remove the need for first speaking to him by dispelling any possible suspicions concerning one's own sincerity. For example, if one speaks against the perpetrator in public, in the presence of three, that's public, rather than speaking to individual members of the community in private, it becomes clear to all that the speaker could not be attempting to gain favor with the perpetrator by showing acceptance of his behavior. Similarly, if the speaker is known to be zealous and outspoken and would not be suspected of flattery, he could resort to private discussion. Also, if it is clear to all that the perpetrator is a difficult personality and publicly criticizing his behavior could be dangerous, then one may speak against him in private without fear of personal suspicion. In the margin it says, one who follows the teachings of Torah will avoid any possibility of baseless hatred. And it's interesting, I just did a video on Tomer Devorah, day 15, and that's Sinat Chinam, or baseless hatred, is kind of like coming out in that, because you have this idea of respecting all creatures, all creation, and that includes wicked people. Which sometimes, we think of, well, baseless hatred, they're wicked, but that's something to aspire to. We're aspiring to be prophets, a nation of prophets, just like Moshe said in Bamidbar, 1149, I think. If he says, if they were but only a nation of, they were all prophets. But anyway, continuing. So from his work, Sefer Shmirat HaLashon, this lesson is called A Proper Outlook. So anyone who sincerely strives to emulate Aaron HaKohen, so Aaron the priest, who loved and pursued peace, must refrain from speaking Lashon Hara and from accepting as truth the Lashon Hara related to him by others. To accept gossip as truth is to be led along the path of Sinat Hinam, baseless hatred, quarreling, and strife. And I say this all the time, this idea of, it says that Aaron loved peace and pursued peace. The idea of pursuing peace, Rodav Sholem, it's the same word that's used to pursue your enemy. But we don't pursue in that manner. We pursue peace, not enemies, right? So it's the complete opposite of what the world thinks, pursue your enemies, da-da-da-da-da. Get on them, right? whole books written on like the art of warfare, right? We're commanded to pursue peace. Okay, when a person is told that so-and-so has spoken or acted negatively toward him, and he accepts this report as fact, he will inevitably quarrel with that person. In the end, the two will become bitter enemies, to the point that each will seek the downfall of the other and will rejoice over the other's misfortune. And this is, you can see this played out in the nation of Israel, like in the eyes of the world, where stories come out, Israel bombed a flotilla, with a drone. And it's like, then they find out, some dude was smoking beside some fuel can and it blew up. It's stuff like this that, like, after the fact, when the truth comes out, it's like, but you spewed all that hatred out there, It says, now, would the listener react in the way, and you know what? That might be, it's very possible, and we need to actually consider this deep in our hearts. The stuff that happens against Israel like that, as a nation, all this stuff like, settler violence, and then you find out it's a whole bunch of Palestinians running around with phones that perpetrated it, or something like that. That type of thing where it's like gossip that gets spread around and it's not true. Is it a result of the way that we speak? Are we being judged in that sense because we've had this behavior as a nation? We'll just say as a nation or as an individual. And that's the reason why. Maybe the remedy is to correct our speech. B'nai Yisrael, listen up. It may be to correct our speech. If you don't want Israel to be slandered, the nation of Israel to be slandered across the world, you don't want Judaism to be slandered across the world, watch your tongue. It's very interesting. I'm thinking about this. I had a dream last night about something in my mouth, and I'm not going to share my dream, but this is why, like, you have to look at things with a Hebrew lens. Because as soon as I took the thing that was in my mouth and I transferred it into a Hebrew word, the root of that word and the other meanings of it, it was just like immediately I just completely understood what the dream was about. And I think it has a lot to do with what I'm talking about right now. So I'll continue. Now would the listener react in the way dictated by Torah? All this would not occur. For upon hearing the report, he would think to himself that perhaps the information is entirely false, or at least laced with falsehood, in a way that totally alters the true nature of what had occurred. This reminds me of the Sanhedrin. When you would, there would be a capital case. If it was unanimous, it'd be basically like a mistrial. If it was a unanimous guilty verdict, they'd throw it out because they'd be like, nothing is that perfect. Nothing is that. There had to have been some sort of falsehood in something that we all came to this conclusion, and it tainted something. And it, so anyway, that might be hard for you guys to put together what I just said with this message, but I'll continue. All this would not occur, for upon hearing the report, he would think to himself that perhaps the information is entirely false, or at least laced with falsehood in a way that totally alters the true nature of what had occurred. Or perhaps the speaker had omitted certain key details which, had they been mentioned, would have cast the matter in an entirely different light. As we all know, even a change of nuance can alter a word portrait drastically. Would the listener follow the way of Torah, he would seek some source of merit for the alleged perpetrator. Perhaps whatever had been done was committed without intent to harm. Any and all of the above possibilities would preclude ill feeling and ensure that strife not come between the two parties. So that is the end of the lesson for day 58. So thanks for watching.